Okay, and you'll be able to hear the presentation for the online version. Otherwise, you'll see a brand new same version posted shortly after. Can everybody hear the poll?
No.
No.
You're gonna have to speak. Okay. Oh, okay. Testing. There we go. Testing. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again. My name is Nicole Goodbrand. I'm the new project lead for long-range planning and special projects. Again, thank you so much. I was not anticipating this wonderful turnout, so hopefully we can have this quick presentation and then have more discussions with the boards. All right, so just for a brief outline, let me move this box for you. Here's my box. Can't find it. It's hard to see from this angle. Thank you. So just an outline, we're going to start with an introduction to the growth management study, just a general discussion about what that even means. We are going to briefly recap the completed work thus far, as this project did start in 2021. I'll touch on the growth Norfolk themes. So the themes kind of representing the vision of the project overall, as well as the land study and growth options report and coinciding information. And then finally, we'll also talk about just an introduction to the Land Evaluation Area Review, or the LEAR study. Excuse me, technical difficulties. We practiced it today. Andrew saving me. Perfect. All right. So growth management study. What is it? A growth management study is a study that provides guidance to where to direct growth within a municipality to accommodate the projected population and economic growth. So business, jobs. And it is considered a part of the comprehensive review that will ultimately inform an official plan update or review. What's included in that? Well, it's a combination of things. So there's the historic and forecasted population and employment numbers, the number and types of building permits issued, looking at what's actually being built, the existing and future land supply, so what land we have, the proposed growth options in relation to infrastructure, supply, systems, and capacity, as well as the existing overarching policy framework from the province as well as locally. And we also look at the existing and future protected industrial and agricultural lands specifically. So as I mentioned, the growth or Grow Norfolk project, or the growth management study here in Norfolk, was initiated in mid-2021. Norfolk County did retain the services of Watson's and Associates Economists Limited, or Watson for short, to assist staff with the project. Since 2021, numerous components of the study have been completed with public input as well as councils. Access to these reports is available not only through the council agenda when they would have gone, but right through our Engage Norfolk page, and there'll be a QR code right on the screen right at the end to quickly take you to that link. It's also easily accessible through our planning page on norfolkcounty.ca, I should say. So we're now essentially in phase 3. We're finishing up some components of phase 2 with the ever-changing provincial landscape, but we are working towards those options, and that's going to be the main precipice of what we talk about today. So to initiate this project, we did want to have essentially a value system and a vision. And so the Grow Norfolk themes came through that project and through public input. There are 6 themes. So the first is to encourage growth to occur in efficient and integrated manners. The second is to ensure the necessary infrastructure is developed to support the needs of the growing population. The third is to endorse fiscal responsibility through the effective use of available tools. Then we have the support agricultural operations and industrial operations by reducing land fragmentation and compatibility conflicts. We focus on protecting and enhancing the natural environment and cultural heritage throughout the county. And finally, we look at promoting intensification through creative design to support continued residential and economic growth in appropriate locations. So those are the overarching themes. So the first component that we'll talk about and you'll see around the room is focused on the land supply and growth options report. So this information does come from what we have titled Volume 4, Land Study and Options. The report went to Council Committee on May 9th. And that report and the attached documents are available again on the Council pages, as well as right through the Engage Norfolk for this project. So staff completed a review of existing land supply. We have to look at what we have and what we've done in the past in order to understand our future. And kind of, there's lots of components, and the study goes more into depth in the report as well. But some kind of key components here on the slide. The chart on the left identifies the average 5-year intensification and greenfield development. So greenfield and intensification both happen within the settlement areas, within that settlement boundary. But the exception, or what makes them different, intensification happens within what we call the built boundary line, which is different than the settlement boundary line. It is established, the current settlement boundary line, I should say, was established in 2018 with the official plan update, the previous official plan update. And like it sounds, built boundary, it was where the existing infrastructure structures had been built out to. So essentially traces that line. So what happens between those spaces, between where it was built in 2018 and then that expansion, we consider greenfield, where anything that happens within that, the existing community as we know it, we consider intensification. For the purposes of this, there are some like nuances like infill and different terms used, but that's what we're talking about here. The chart on the right shows the summary of the estimated land supply. So the left is showing the percentage of what was built, where it was built over that 5-year span. And then on the right, we're actually looking at potential housing units that still exist within the land supply based on those same definitions. So it is based on the work of Watson as well as our Norfolk County data. It's estimated that there's a potential for 1,212 intensification units and over 8,000 greenfield units. The estimated total is approximately 9,360 units, that potential existing within the community. And that's within the settlement boundaries. So these are some visuals that are again in the previous report. This just shows where that development may occur. So the legend identifies things that are draft approved, in circulation or under review, site-specific intensification opportunities, or designated for future lands, as well as registered vacant lots. So you can kind of see the delineation there. And I can always pop these up after. So in regards to the growth forecast, Watson prepared with our data. There's essentially 3 different growth scenarios that were identified: low, reference, and high. It was established through council in committee, as well as through Watson's most recent update, that the high scenario, that's what council has elected to continue with. So that population, we're looking to 2051, looks like 92,700. And you can kind of see the different variations. That is a growth scenario of 1% each year, whereas the reference, or the kind of middle, and the low scenario obviously are a little bit less for each. So here's kind of the bread and butter, what we're mainly talking about today. In addition to our LEAR study component, we want to talk about the growth options. So based on those scenarios, the low, medium, and high, essentially, council was able to select through Watson and staff's review and recommendation a high scenario. So with that high scenario, 4 growth options were essentially established. So the first, or the base case, or case base, that option is, it assumes the median growth. So it essentially functions as a baseline or a control. It assumes that population and employment would be allocated in accordance with past trends, and same with housing supply opportunities. Through staff recommendation, and so through that report in May, it was not recommended as a county-wide potential scenario, but it does represent kind of that middle ground. Option 2A is based on the high growth scenario. So the remaining are based on high growth scenario. The intensification target assumed for this option is aligned with the county's current official plan policies, which is 25%. So intensification, again, within that built boundary, and follows a similar housing mix by structure type. So we're looking at the types of homes. The allocation by urban settlement area takes in consideration land availability, as well as proposed servicing capacity, including all proposed upgrades and expansions. Under this option, so under 2A, a higher amount of growth is allocated to the settlement area of Port Dover and Port Rowan due to the availability of land, and it aims to utilize all the servicing capacity available and proposed upgrades and proposed expansions by 2051. So I should note, it's recognized that the county's urban settlement areas and rural areas have a role to play in accommodating growth. So accordingly, approximately 800 new permanent and seasonal housing units have been allocated to the county's hamlets in these options, including all options, including 2A, as well as the ones following. The absolute number of housing units allocated to the rural area remains the same across the board. So we're really looking at the urban settlements within these, just to note that as well. So option 2B is fairly similar to 2A, hence the 2A, 2B. The growth allocations in this option, however, are further focused towards the urban settlement areas of Delhi, Simcoe, and Waterford, which have available municipal water and wastewater servicing capacity. This option also assumes lower growth in Port Dover and Port Rowan, where there's a need for servicing upgrades and expansions. And then option 3. It assumes a similar growth allocation to 2B under the high scenario, so same 1%, but it assumes a higher intensification rate. So it's looking at a 35% intensification rate. Accordingly, the housing mix by structure type under option 3 is anticipated to shift. So it's towards more medium or high density forms. So getting a little bit more in our urban areas. This allocation to the county's rural settlement areas remains the same. So that does not change. So with that in mind, we also have this other component of the growth management study, Grow Norfolk. So as part of Grow Norfolk, settlement boundary expansions are being accepted. And as per the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, a comprehensive review, like the Grow Norfolk study is feeding into, is the only option to create new or expand existing settlement areas, which may be what a lot of you are interested in hearing about too through this process. To date, we have 31 distinct requests for settlement area boundary expansions and or protected industrial conversion requests. So these are up around the room, so you can look at them in much better detail than on this screen. But these do identify essentially the urban areas as well as either proposed expansion areas or areas of potential evaluation, whether it's from an existing request, staff review, or existing comments from the public that have already been received. So I have all of them here. Again, they're all basically behind you. So just kind of summarize that component. On a countywide level, there is sufficient land to accommodate growth in the urban area. But at the urban area level, so the specific areas, there is potential deficiencies in the ability to accommodate that growth. And a review of appropriateness of potential boundary expansion lands and allocation is necessary. So that becomes the next step once we evaluate those growth options. So to kind of switch gears, all part of the same project, we'll talk a little bit about the LEAR study. So the purpose of a LEAR study, and we have lots of boards with that just over here as well. A LEAR study confirms the location of prime agricultural lands and areas while simultaneously identifying what is not considered prime agricultural. So it looks at both sides of that spectrum. It also forms part of the comprehensive plan. So it's all part of the same project. It is informed and comes from the provincial policy statement, which identifies when and how these areas are evaluated. And it also, the PPS also identifies rural lands and how those can be identified. And the LEAR study helps us to make sure that it doesn't compromise prime agricultural areas should those come out of the study. A LEAR study has two basic components. There's the land evaluation as well as the area review. So the land evaluation assesses inherent soil and climatic conditions for agriculture, and this is done through GIS. The area review considers other factors, such as potential fragmentation, the size of the lots, and this component was shaped in our study through the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and we'll look to that in the future. So both of those components combined give an overall score through the LEAR study, and the higher the score, the higher the potential for agricultural lands, and the lower the score, obviously, the lower potential. That was essentially a crash course in what we have around the room. So I'm happy to bring up some of the slides following this, but essentially everything is behind you in details. You can get up nice and close and take a look. We do have a couple options for communication today and discussion. So we'll be placed around the room to have a discussion with you all. There's a feedback board just by the back pillar there. We have some sticky notes, and we'd be happy once you've looked around, any comments, any questions, anything you want to ask or contribute, especially around the growth options in the LEAR study, please put it on there. There's no wrong answer or a wrong comment. We want to hear anything you have to say. So that's one aspect. The other, there's also a virtual survey option, very similar component, and it's available on Engage Norfolk. So the QR code will lead you directly there. It has basically the same engagement component, but you're welcome to engage on that. Following this meeting, that's where you can find a recording of the presentation, and this will be up until September 5th. So I'll leave this up here. We'll mingle around the room. We have representatives from our department, and so we'll be around. Yes, and I should introduce everyone so you know who you're looking for. If you can't see your tags. So you met Patricia Gibbons. Just introduce them. Okay, this is Andrew Poe. Yep, supervisor of GIS. and Hamid On, who's our supervisor of development planning. And somewhere back there is Brandon, our general manager. So yes, feel free to come chat with us. We'll be around the room, and we look forward to chatting with you. Oh, and there are snacks, some granola bars, water, and there is some coffee. So please help yourselves. Okay, thank you so much.